I really love this time of year. Winter winds are much colder here. Not here, not here. Hello, my name is Robert Pembroke. I thought I'd offer you a kind of part two to the part one I offered you in relation to the gas warfare missile delivery systems for VX nerve gas in the rocketry systems that use them, yeah? So in part one I think I spoke to you about, if I recall, a report or article that will be published, peer-reviewed in the future, that will be labelled variously as something like considerations in the political econometrics of poisonous gas warfare in high-density population cities of the world. And in that article that I described to you, there'll be discussions about the vertical dimension of gas warfare in terms of office towers, that sort of thing, yeah? Now in part two, I'll tell you about an article that will come up out in the future, perhaps a report. It'll be peer-reviewed and it will relate to the structural design of VX nerve gas delivery systems. It'll be like a peer-reviewed paper that'll occur first, and then there'll be another one titled variously as canisters within intercontinental rocketry delivery systems of nation states. So you'll have the former one occurring first, and the latter one will actually refer to the former one when it's published, yeah? And this all kind of relates to matter out of place, because you can kind of work out things are missing when you look at journal reports and articles. There are certain articles and journals that happen to be missing, yeah? So you kind of work out there's an absence for some reason or other. And how we get there is via a type of heuristic of design ideational formation, a bit like Raymond Williams speaks about in his cultural theories, a kind of a formation of ideas that have to kind of stack up in a certain way. Now, how I know these things is that I was employed briefly by Mount Isa Mines. The acronym there is MIM. They were located in Mount Isa, if I recall, where I worked in the refining of minerals using cyanide gas extraction techniques, similar to the gold and copper extraction techniques. So I know how poisonous gases in canisters behave and are designed in terms of metallurgical purposes. And of course, in the deployment of poisonous gases delivered onto the battlefield via rocketry systems, that I'll describe to you in part 3 in, let me see, in fairly simple plain English terms. Okay, so the canisters of gas deployed, let's say, by intercontinental ballistic missiles, the acronym there is ICBM, using the modified Apollo rocket engines of the forerunner of the Mercury engines in the Gemini program, and conversely the highly reliable long-range Soyuz rocket engines of former bloc countries such as, let me see, the Soviet Union, which was Nieto Sovetsky Soyuz, and that became Russia and Moscow, or Nieto Rossiya, Moscow, and of course other bloc countries such as the People's Liberation Army of the People's Republic of China. The acronym there is PLAPRC, and that might be described as Woman Jia Tamen Renmin Jia Fengjun. Woman Jia Tamen Zhongguo Hua Mingo. Okay? So that's just to describe it, get people on the right page with me, okay? I'm going to describe to you. In relation to the storage systems that are kind of universal in a way, they all use a very similar principle. So the gas canisters are stored proximal to the head of the rockets, no matter which nation state it is. And the gas canister payload, the nerve gas, the VX, is deployed in a type of deliberate controlled disintegration of the rocket fuselage. And some people will tell you that it's a bit like the game of Kerplunk that kids play. Did you play that when you were a kid? Yeah, I did too. It's wonderful, isn't it? That and Mousetrap, they're kind of similar in that way. They're kind of like a controlled disintegration, aren't they? And that's how the rockets work. They appear haphazard and disorderly, but they're actually a controlled accident, really. And they disintegrate in an orderly style of accident, and all the components fall apart in the right direction. It's a bit like, you ever see in a stampede how people all fall over the same way in the same direction? Or down an escalator it happens, doesn't it? And holy hell, you know, when that happens. Or if you fall over yourself, you kind of always fall over the same way, don't you? So there's like a predetermined system of behaviour and function both in humans and in design that lead to the same outcome. Now I'd like to describe for you in this image here the 4 stages of that controlled crash that occurs with the rocket payload in relation to the VX nerve gas canisters, the deployment of the gas in the canisters. So you have in a phase or stage 1, you have a situation where the canisters, these kind of barrel-shaped canisters, a bit like this lemon here, you know, it's a bit barrel-shaped, isn't it? You have those canisters and they're kind of lined up, a bit like people might line up again on an escalator or out on a queue at a shopping centre, yeah? And they're lined up one after the other, these canisters, and they're full of the VX gas. And as the rocket approaches the target zone, everything starts to disintegrate, yeah, and fall apart in stage 2. The rocket starts to split apart, deliberately so, and out roll the canisters one after the other. Across the sky they go, and then in the next stage they appear to glow, and that's because as the rocket descends out of near-Earth orbit, that's acronym NEO, they tend to develop a lot of friction, and they're covered in fuel because the rocket's fallen apart, the fuel canisters burst for the rocket and everything gets covered in fuel, and they light up and they look like globs, like beads on a necklace, like rosary beads or something, as they go across floating down from the sky. And what you find is that eventually the glow goes away and the parachutes deploy and they float down uniformly and they land in the target zone, and then the gas taps turn on and the gas starts to flood the area with the nerve agent, yeah, and it starts to kill. So that's the 4 stages. Now, what do the canisters look like? Because this is something people are rather interested in, aren't they? The gas canister design. The gas canisters, they're designed under a very similar patent internationally. It's a requirement of the industry. It's like an industry standard that they're designed the same way. So it doesn't matter whether it's delivered in an American rocket system or a Soviet rocket system. They still get delivered the same way in the same design module, yeah? Some people say that it's analogous to, say, the design of a raw egg, or indeed, again, a lemon, yeah, a bit barrel-shaped like a lemon. And yeah, so there is an outer shell, a bit like an egg has an outer shell, and it's made of high tensile steel. There's an inner layer comprising a cover gas. This is something not many people know about. And that cover gas, it's harmless, but exudes a smelly, unnatural scent designed to alert those proximal that the inner core metal canister containing the nerve agent has not been punctured or breached in an accident, such as, say, the impact of a large vehicle or aircraft into the facility where it's kept. And where it's usually kept in the United States is at the transportation hub at Area 51. That's why it has to be there, that's why it's so remote, yeah? If the smell is present, it means that everything is okay and the integrity of the core canister holding the VX nerve gas is safely intact and undisturbed. If the integrity of the metal skin of the inner nerve gas canister was corrupted by an accident, say when a truck hits it or something, then there would be no smell because the cover gas would have escaped through the puncture in the steel lining. Therefore, if the canister smells, then it's a contraindication of contamination. If it doesn't smell, then again it is a false positive or contraindication again that there is a puncture and the nerve gas is escaping. So you smell something, it's okay. If you don't smell something, it ain't okay. If this happened, say you didn't smell something, then in all likelihood you wouldn't know about it because you'd be dead. And it is really only used as an indicator for the cleanup crews after that happens. So you'll find that the people who have work to do around them, they can pretty well smell it all the time usually. And then when it's no longer present, well, that, they wouldn't be there, they'd be dead, wouldn't they? Or it would be moved. So that, I just had to stop for a moment to make a cup of coffee. So I'll continue now. As I said, or I should say, the reason I understand these matters, these issues of contention that may be seen as controversial is because I have been proximal to dangerous gases of this nature in the workplace, so as a prior occupation, so I actually kind of know what they're all about. In saying that, I've got to admit there are some problems with the type of heuristic I'm offering you in terms of an ideational formation within the nature of, say, an understanding or misunderstanding, depending on what you think of it. The main problem as I see it, in terms of conjecture about understanding, is that the deployment and storage of poisonous gases can lead to mistrust about other things as well. If we can't trust the nature of how gases are stored, then how can we trust the nature of how a submarine is manufactured? They both involve similar materials, yeah? So there's always going to be a question about the honesty and integrity of Defence Corporation contracts, and if they're being tampered with, that sort of thing. Especially when we do see quite blatant examples of academic interference. At the moment it's rather topical with the AUKUS tender about the submarines, and I guess after what I've said, some people may have queries about the honesty and integrity of people involved. I mean, they've said things about me, so even on the basis of what they think of me, they must query it, surely. If they think such things of me, then they must query the whole process. And I guess for me personally, though, what my concern is really about the integrity, the honesty of members of the professions and the trades that seek to achieve some sort of winning of a tender or a contract on the basis of double deception. They may be making claims that they can't substantiate, in relation to, let's say, accreditation, in relation to or linked to the nature of weaponisation in this area of specialisation that I've described to you. Because almost certainly these submarines, for example, would cover the area of gas warfare as well. They would almost certainly carry missile systems containing nerve gas. Yeah. So they're nuclear submarines. You see, they have to have that capability. Yeah, so that was always an issue for me about, if you can't trust, say, the manufacturer of submarines, and conversely, how can you trust, say, the manufacturer of canisters for the containment of gases, any gas really? How could you trust anybody in that regard, yeah? So the issue, again, primarily is that the manufacture of all of these devices, some of which occur here, but others don't. Others occur overseas, and one has to say, why is it that the manufacture of containment devices for gases, or indeed for submarines, is mutually exclusive when they actually are components that are manufactured in a similar way, both here and overseas, yeah? I'm inclined to think there might be something amiss with relationships between the professions and the trades, a mistrust in the nature of a double deception. There are people, they simply can't receive medical attention in this country because they fear they may be attacked by one or other person, yeah, so they just don't show up. They can't. If they wish to be treated medically, they have to go overseas. They can't be treated here. Likewise, there are people who can't receive services that are appropriate and worthy of payment in relation to, say, trade expertise. So it's not something that's happening one way and not the other. It's actually quite literally happening in a rather generalised way right across the economy. And it is difficult to know exactly who you can trust when you purchase a good or service, yeah? Anyway, I'll leave it at that. It is rather controversial though, and as I say, it's contentious, and definitely contested by a lot of people, but you never really hear about it. Anyway, thanks very much. Have a look.
I really love this time of year. The winter winds are much colder here. Not here, not here. Oh, not here. Watch the birds fly south across the autumn bay, and one by one ducktail disappear. I wish that I was flying with them now. No, you're not here. No, you're not here. No, you're not.